Up to it. This is our Sunday evening group call for the WhatsApp and now our Facebook page. Sorry guys, I'm just trying to stick with tradition. Just want to go ahead and do the brief intro as we get into tonight's speaker. So I had the page open here on my phone, and of course it closed. Sorry about that. 1 second, guys. So we have Mr. Manny. All right, so Manny's a licensed mental health therapist who helps people build resilience to overcome limiting beliefs and reach fulfillment in their lives. And it's pretty cool. I actually had the pleasure of speaking to Manny, me and Peter did the other day. I think he has some really great information to give us tonight, so I think you guys are in for a treat. And to go ahead and just kind of lead off with the first question here this evening. So Manny, tell us about your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for the invite today, and thanks everybody who hopped on. So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about just kind of what brought me to do what I do today, and it all really started with my parents, really, who they're immigrants from Mexico who decided to come over here to be able to find a better life. At the time, my dad was trying to go to school in Mexico City. And they had some riots going on at that time where they would pull people out, and if you didn't want to leave the classroom, you'd get shot in the spot. And so my dad wanted something better for himself. He wanted something better for him and my mom. And they decided that the only way they were going to be able to get that was to come to the United States. So, from there on, I don't know if you guys have any kind of similarities with having parents who've come to the United States, but like that's a big challenge within itself. I mean, it takes a lot of guts to be able to step outside of your comfort zone and come to a country you don't even know, a place you don't even know how to speak the language, and try to find a job and try to find some sort of support for yourself so that you could achieve the goals that you've really set for yourself. So earlier on, that's something that I grew up with, right? My parents had me. We lived under a table in a small little 1-bedroom apartment that housed 15, maybe 20 people. And that's how I kind of, was brought into this world. My parents have been there the entire time. They've been amazing. They've been awesome. Trying to teach me the values of working hard and being able to go get what what you want to get, what your heart wants from you, right? So, unfortunately, though, one thing about my parents that I never really received for them, and I don't really fault them for this, is just that being able to connect with me emotionally, that being able to give me, a place to be able to talk about just what I was going through. And they did their best. They were there for me. They worked their butts off, but there was that aspect that was really missing for me. And for me, I really felt the void of like, who can I talk to? What can I, where can I be able to share just kind of what I'm going through as a man growing up in the United States, right? I have an older brother, but he's my half brother. So I never really met him until I was like 20. And I didn't really have anyone to really look up to, to really take their lead and ask questions about like, what's a man, what is it like to be a man? What is the kind of things that the challenges that you face as a man, what's normal to face, what's not normal to face, and how do you overcome those things? So, earlier on from middle school, high school, I was lost, man. I didn't really like myself. I didn't really accept who I was as a person. And I had no confidence, self-doubt. And you can, like, nobody knew it. I was actually really good at covering that up from people. But what I was doing was I was a chameleon, right? Like I could be around people who, I thought were my friends or who I called friends, and just give them what they wanted, right? If they wanted funny Manny, I would show up, make some jokes, and be funny Manny. If there was somebody who who they were picking on, I would jump on that wagon and start picking on that person. As a matter of fact, I remember, in high school, I had a really good friend, man. This guy who just kind of helped me through some educational challenges I was having, and I connected with him. He was my neighbor. We hung out all the time. And when we came around our group of friends, they were bagging on him, and I climbed on, and you know, I jumped on board. I did the same thing, and I felt like shit for it. But for me, it was more important to look cool in front of people, to be able to be accepted by the people who I thought I wasn't going to be accepted by, than to man up and say, hey guys, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a part of this. So I had many moments in life that were like that for me. And, I think it wasn't until graduating high school that I really wanted to. I'm like, okay, there's got to be something better out there. Like, I'm not really happy with who I am. I don't have the confidence that I need to have, that I know I can have. And I actually decided to embark on a journey to become a therapist, because mistakenly so, I thought, you know what, if I can help people fix their problems, and I say fix because I thought that that's what a therapist does, is fix people, then I was going to be all right. I was going to be able to fix my own problems. So I worked my butt off in college, got the grades to get into the school that I wanted to get to here in Orange County. And I was so confident because I was, hitting the grades, I was doing the work, I was like playing the part. And I thought, this is working, right? Like, I'm becoming a therapist. I'm learning about psychology. I'm getting really good at like learning just how the mind works, what I need to know to be able to help other people, so I can kind of help myself. But it wasn't until I went into Chapman University, where I got my master's degree, and I walked in there. I was accepted. They were like, congratulations, you can join our program. And I was so happy. I walked into the first day of class. It was orientation day. And I looked around the room. There was 25 people who I was going to be going to class with for the next 3 years. And I just remember looking in there, like feeling so confident. And then once I walked in there, just seeing everybody, smiling faces, engaging with each other, raising their hands, talking about therapy, talking about their goals in life and what they wanted to achieve. And immediately this familiar feeling of doubt, of low confidence, of you don't belong in this room came over me. So that was a big moment for me, because I realized, like, okay, if I'm going to be able to be successful at this, if I'm going to be able to help people, like, I got to find a way to break out of this, because this was holding on to me now for 25 years. No confidence, not being able to escape that. And, I took a risk. I went into therapy for myself. I never thought I would be able to do that. But being in a room where I can talk to somebody about my feelings, where I can share someone that, I didn't believe in myself, that I had places that I wanted to go in my mind, but that I couldn't really find the belief inside of me to do it, and just hearing this person say back to me, like, hey, I get it. I've been there. First time I ever opened up to anybody. Um, it felt amazing. I felt like, holy crap, like, I'm not the only one going through this. And that was the first time that I ever opened up to anybody, and I saw the benefit of opening up to people. I saw the real benefit of therapy and what it could do for people. And so I stuck with that for years, right? Like, I personal development, reading books, listening to podcasts, going to therapy. And like, I'm here. I became a therapist, and I'm really proud to say, like, I'm really a good therapist. Like, I'm confident in the skills that I have, because I was able to take those steps myself. And so that's kind of why I became a therapist. And with that, just gained a lot of passion to be able to share just this idea that for people that are out there who feel like they're alone, who haven't been able to open up to somebody because they're going through something that and feel that maybe other people don't know what they're going through. so just to tell that person that like you're not the only one. Like we go through this, you know, men, women, children, like we go through these experiences, and we got to learn to lean on people to be able to overcome those things.
That's awesome, man. No, and I can definitely relate to what you said. I remember, yeah, kind of had a rough, as well. We talked a little bit about that when we spoke, and I remember I kind of had that breakthrough actually with, I don't know if she was like a therapist or psychologist. I remember being like in fifth grade and just having a really hard time, and speaking to the school counselor,
Yeah.
and I just kind of felt like she actually cared. Just having that, like, somebody be really empathetic, really truly listening, really wanting to help me, other than just like the teachers that would just look at me like, oh, he's a problem. They don't want to help me out. I was just kind of like a thorn on their side. So, I could definitely, relate to that a lot. I wanted to ask you too. So, kind of like on your road to being where you are today, what would you say was like the most difficult obstacle that you had to overcome?
I think that part of like letting myself expose myself was pretty difficult. I'm an emotional guy, so like I can really like I can go through a lot of physical like loss and stuff like that, and just not react too much to it, but I hold it in internally, right? And so I've been like, I've lost my grandmother, I've lost my uncle. He was an alcoholic and committed suicide, you know, and so those were really key moments for me. I was really close to him. I loved him, and I kind of lost him at a crucial time in my life. I lost my little cousin who passed to. He was 1 year old, passed away in a car accident. But those moments I don't describe as hard for me because I hold it. I hold them in. I think the biggest challenges that I've ever gone through was being able to reveal those moments. Does that make sense? Being able to like to tell
Let it go.
somebody like I'm having a really hard time with how I'm feeling, and cry in front of somebody. Like those I think for me that have been the biggest challenges that I've had to face.
And for people that go through that, like a huge, let's call it like a trauma. Like, I actually had something. I know what worked for me. I just kind of want to see like your take. I
Yeah.
had a horrible year like a few years ago. It was like my best friend. This guy was more like a brother, but not through blood. Like, we grew up together. Middle school. We played in rock bands together. We just had a lot of history. We were just always hanging out. And this guy, you would never think in a million years he had any issues. Always happy. And then he just kind of fell into a depression. It kind of came to light after he dated some girl there. To this day, I kind of like play back. I'm like, what made him? So, anyways, long story short, he was clinically depressed and he committed suicide. And it
Yeah.
was just like a blow. It's like from like total left field. Like, this guy had everything. Bachelor, he had the house. He was working for AT&T for a long time. Had a nice pension. Had money. Dating. Multiple. Had multiple partners. He would go to West Palm Beach and go. I mean, just like a picture perfect life. Like, friends that I have that are married, once he passed on, they're like, man, like, this guy, like, us being married guys, looking at him, like, you would think he had everything. But I guess deep
Yeah.
inside, like, he was just like suffering. So people that kind of have that kind of a trauma, like something like a suicide, or they're dealing with, whatever obstacles, or they encounter like certain traumas, like, what would be your suggestion, for them on how to, like, what steps could they take to kind of get through that moment?
Well, I think the first thing is like is you have to feel safe enough to be able to talk to somebody, you know. And I think the first thing I would tell somebody is just read a little bit about it, right? Like find some books that kind of um, you can relate with, or find some online videos where you can really kind of understand just what trauma is doing to you physically, you know, because there's a physical change happening in your mind, in your body when you go through a trauma that doesn't allow you to process that memory very effectively. There's actually a spot in your brain where like the memory almost gets stuck, and that's why when someone is experiencing trauma, that's why they have, you know, what they call like triggers. They'll have like flashbacks, they'll have nightmares, and they'll be really reactive to maybe loud noises, or in the experience of losing a friend, right? In the case you were talking about, maybe just hearing about someone else dying will kind of trigger that moment back into your life. And so there's a way to be able to talk about these things with somebody that help you reprocess those memories that are stuck. And and the more you talk about it, it's almost like this balloon inside of you. The more you release and talk about that, the more that balloon deflates, and you're able to really um, it's not going to affect you in your day to day as it normally does. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, totally. And what I did actually during that time is, and it happened, I was working for Carnival Cruise Line. It was the busiest time of the year. They call it wave seasons between January and April. I think it was January and March. But anyways, yeah, like the first 3, 4 months of the year, that's when personal vacation planners,
I
people
might
in
just
sales
try to
doing
do some
outbound calls.
photography, like of my.
That's essentially when, you get paid like, almost like it could be anywhere between 30, 40% of your yearly earnings. And yeah, I decided to just go back to work and just power through. And I did take like I think it was like about 2 days off, I believe it was. But then afterwards I just got back in there, talked to my coach. I'm like, look, I just want to, me being at home is not going to do me any justice. I'm just going to go crazy, just kind of, think about it. We went to the wake. We did this, spiritual thing with a priest over at his house with his parents, and that was it. I just went back to work, and I just completely immersed myself in my job, and it helped a lot, just kind of like powering through it. And of course the thoughts were always there. I would always like think about it, but kind of like not having to focus on it, like, at every waking moment, because I was at work. I had to focus on my sales and, keeping a positive demeanor, a happy face, so to speak. So I think that really, helped me out a lot. But yeah, no, I could definitely relate.
Yeah, that's big. This kind of, you were talking to me about your friend and kind of describing him as someone where you're like, man, like I can't believe that would happen to him. And this kind of, it brought me back to a topic that I wanted to touch on, because there's a lot of people here that are really successful and that want to embark on a journey of success. So I teach a lecture to parents and family members who have a family member who's using drugs and addicted to drugs and alcohol. And so I have to explain this idea of like family roles and how people use um, different ways of coping. They have different ways of coping, right? And so for somebody who's like using substances addictively, that's their way to cope, to escape, is to be able to either drink or use drugs. But there's other people in the family who are using unhealthy ways of coping, and they don't really realize it yet because it doesn't look like it's unhealthy. So one of them that I identify with, and I don't know if maybe some of you might as well, is there's this role in the family that's called the family hero. And so the family hero uh, has these feelings of kind of like low self-worth, low confidence, self-doubt, like the ones that I was talking about you earlier. And they've learned to cope with those feelings by achieving success. And so what happens is this person learns to be happy whenever they get good grades, or to be happy whenever they notice a lot of money coming in because their business is doing so great, or be happy when they notice their name is featured on Forbes. And so you think about like athletes, right, who either have committed suicide or attempted suicide, or you think about athletes who are abusing substances, and you think like, dang, like that person had it all. Like what was going on there? Like how could they just throw it all away? Well, a lot of what's happening is you're chasing something to not feel these feelings of low self-worth, low confidence. And so every time you reach a level of success, it's great. It fills that void for a little bit, but then you need a new level of success to fill it. And so I don't know if you guys have ever heard the term, right? I'm sure you guys have. Success is a journey. It's not a destination.
Hmm.
Um, I take that term, I take that phrase, and I really think like we got to fall in love with the feelings we got to fall in love with like the chase, right? We got to fall in love with like being open-minded, being constant learners, like the good positive things about success. We can't stay focused on the the trophy at the end, because that's never going to be good enough for some of us. Like we're going to put everything on the line for that trophy. And when we get there, it's going to feel good for maybe a week or so. And then after that, our minds are going to be like, all right, what's next? And so for us success people, I work with a lot of people who have become addicted after retiring, become addicted to alcohol or drugs. Like working on your identity, like what's important to you, family, um, maybe your journey. I hear Gary Vee always talking about, my goal is that 1 million people show up at my funeral. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes those things are you want to impact the world. That's a higher purpose for you to be focused on, and it's healthier than just looking at that trophy. Does that make sense?
Man, 100%. And I'm glad you mentioned that because that's interesting. Like I noticed that a lot speaking to different entrepreneurs or, people wanting to get started is that it's like they always have that end goal in mind, but what they don't realize is you have to actually also enjoy the whole process. And the process includes not just the wins, but also the losses, because that's
Yeah.
all part of the entire process. So
Right.
once you accept that, those setbacks, those losses, and just take it for what it is, man, take it for a learning experience. What's that saying? You either win or you learn, and you just keep moving forward. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. So I don't want to hog all the questions. I think Peter had some questions for you as well.
Well, I will just tap into some of the questions that they pop up during this process that you describe and everything. And one of the things I was thinking, as you as a therapist, uh, how we can convert this idea so people that can relate the entrepreneurs with the business person with what you do. So how you feel like the therapy is going to be relaying with an entrepreneurial mindset? How is going to be the connection? Where you see those connections that happens?
Yeah. And you kind of cut off there a little bit, but you're saying like how is therapy related or connected in some sense to people who want to be entrepreneurs, right?
Yes.
I think it's in a lot of ways it is. One way is yes. Last week we were talking about different ways to manage your stress, and I think as entrepreneurs we're living uh, in a field that's very very stressful, right? And so being able for my work, when I work with people who are business owners and who just have a lot of things going on around them, being able to have like techniques that are going to help them take time to breathe, time to empty their head with the different things going on in there. Because what's happening when you're thinking all the time, when you're stressed out all the time, is you're not allowing the process of creativity to happen for you. And so the more moments that you can have around that, I'm doing some like meditation groups that I'm offering the public, and some of that enable are channels that enable for entrepreneurs to become a little more creative and less deal less with stress, cope better with stress. But another thing is kind of this idea that as entrepreneurs, I think you have to remember, kind of like Tony was saying, like what's important about the thing that you're doing. Why is it important to you? Being able to keep that why close to you and allowing that to be a healthy why is can be a therapeutic journey for a lot of people. I know for myself, like sometimes I get caught up in like the money turns into my why without me even realizing it. And I know that's happening because I start to get really stressed out. I start to get really upset at people. I start to like just I'm chasing money at that point. But when my why turns back to be helping people understand themselves, helping people um, have moments like I had when I went to therapy, that starts to become more of a doable journey for me, right? And that starts to be I'm more at peace of mind when I'm in that way. And so I think for entrepreneurs, um, embracing the fact that like there's gonna be like a spectrum where you're gonna have to find a balance. On this end, it's gonna be you're gonna be go 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 go. On this end, it's gonna be maybe you're gonna be like, oh, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. In the middle, you're gonna have to find like a middle ground where you're like, okay, I I know what I want. I know that it's going to take some time for me to do it. And how do I take those steps without being so stressed out and stay in a healthy state of mind as I'm moving forward with my life?
Are you familiar with the term of mission, vision, or purpose, MVP?
No, I don't think I've heard of it.
Okay. Well, MVP is like, like the way of kind of, I would say it's like a gas for your tank, for your
Yeah.
engine. For you to be able to have like a well-defined purpose of what you're doing, whatever it is, business goals, certain goals, like I want to lose weight, why I want to lose weight. I think it's sometimes getting to the level that's more important to know why you're doing than if you do it. Because a lot of people that we losing ourselves in the way of getting there because we forgot the way everything. So having a clarity about what is your mission, your vision, your purpose in this,
Yeah.
it can clear out a lot of, I would say, um, barriers, obstacles in front of your goals, because you're gonna know exactly why you're doing this. You know, your mission, you have your vision, how you want to see yourself when you're gonna reach to that destination. And why are you doing this? For who are you doing this? Because purpose is related to who. Are you doing yourself with friends? And in the moment you have all these things, I think the clarity comes very, very big. It's stretching to a level that you will understand what is behind of your journey, the journey, and that helps a lot of people to see more and more. That that journey is not only like spitting fire on you. If you don't have a clarity of the reason you're doing this, you might get discouraged and stop right there.
Yeah.
And now I'm asking you, as with your background, how you'll be able to take that, I would say, mindset, discouragement that entrepreneur have in their journey to get to that vision, that powerful thing, to get in their mind to kind of get hooked in that idea that I will not give up and I will succeed.
Hey, Peter, can you rephrase it? Because you're breaking up a lot. I heard you pretty good, then you dropped off, then you came back, but then you started to.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah,
Can you hear me better?
Yeah, it's a little shaky, but I think so. I think so.
Let me see. Can you hear me better now? I forgot about one pin here.
Oh yeah, man, that's important.
Yeah.
Beginner luck, You hear me better now?
100%.
Okay. So what I was trying to say, how as a professional, how are you gonna be able to make those people to see the end goal and to kind of have in their mind that they cannot give up until they're not gonna reach that goal, that mission, that vision, that purpose that they're gonna put in their mind.
Yeah.
You're gonna be able to convert that energy into mindset, because I think it's very important for a lot of entrepreneurs to be able to move, to not get stuck, to not get afraid, to not give up. A lot of people give up, like they're like 1 feet from the shore, and they're gonna start swimming because it's too hard.
Yeah.
So how are you gonna be able to do that?
So honestly, I think like I have a couple answers for that, and one thing is like usually support groups like this really help people with that. I work really closely with addicts in the field, and we have like groups, 12-step groups. We have support groups where at one point or another somebody really doesn't feel like wanting to be sober anymore. Like they forget the reason why they went into treatment. You think about going to treatment, right? It takes a lot of courage, a lot of guts, a lot of like it takes like Peter was saying, like a desire, a vision of some kind for you to be able to make the decision to go to treatment. And the group, the group experience, the group power sometimes is needed for that to be able to get someone back in on the boat. And I think what happens is you connect with somebody who maybe can say, hey, I was there last week, man, where I didn't think I could do this, where I didn't think that this was something that I could commit to doing anymore. And today I'm feeling a lot better. And that experience is so powerful for people, because I think what happens is when you don't understand, like how feelings work sometimes, because what you're talking about is based on like just discouragement and feeling like, man, like I'm lost here, like, and wanting to throw in the towel. But feelings are they're not fixed. You know what I'm saying? Feelings are ever flowing. One day I'm going to feel really crappy, really, really upset and hopeless that I'm going to be able to get to where I want to get to. And the next day I'm probably going to be really motivated to be able to do what I want to do. And so if I can get a client to like understand that, hey, like don't be completely guided by your feelings. Some of the best in the world at entrepreneurship do this, right? Grant Cardone talks about write your goals down every single day, because even though you write them down today and you don't feel like they're going to be attainable, you still go out and do what you got to do. Tomorrow, you're going to write them down and you might feel like, I'm going to do this. And so I think this idea of like writing down like what's important to you and not really allowing your feelings to influence the decision making, but that goal setting to influence what the decisions that you make. Does that make sense?
Yeah, man, 100%. And I think it's also, at least for me and what I've seen with a lot of people, is you kind of have to identify what your mental state is. Like, for example, when things aren't going right, you're feeling angry, you need to kind of realize and just, kind of admit to yourself, okay, like right now I'm not feeling good. I'm in anger. And during these periods, work and just put all your focus to going back to a more normal, state of mind. And you can't make decisions when you're in that, angry mode, so to speak. I was listening to a podcast actually by one of last week's guests, David Meltzer. He was actually talking about that. Like when you're in that, I think he calls it the anxiety state. Like when you're in that state of mind, you need to identify it, accept it, and now roll it back and, work on getting back to a normal, positive state of mind. Because when you're in that state of mind, you can't accomplish anything. Everything's out the window. And in trading, because like, as you know, I do sales and media. That's kind of like what I do for my company for the most part. But basically, it's a company that focuses on trading. So we have people that are trading in the stock market and they're day trading. We say, all of our head moderators and head trader, that trading is actually 80% mental and 20% skill. So it's like once you start making a few bad trades, it's like you got to stop, because what happens is emotions could kick in like that. And you're like, oh my God, I just lost, X amount of money. And now you start making irrational decisions based on that, anxiety state or anger state, whatever you want to call it. And now every decision afterwards, as far as trading, is a horrible decision, because you're just trying to like make up for that loss. And I think the same thing just goes just generally in business. It's like you should kind of stay away from making decisions when you're in that negative state of mind, and all your focus, all your energy has to go back on being on that positive state of mind, because that's really when you can make the best decisions.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think you like the big thing about therapy is getting to understand yourself, right? Getting to understand myself when I'm my best self, getting to understand myself when I'm not my best self. And so like that's like data collection, right? Like so when I'm not my best self, like I can't even do my bed when I wake up. Like I'm late for work. I can't, and I don't respond to people's text messages. I forget to ask my wife, how are you doing today? Those things like don't happen for me when I'm not my best self. And like I've been able to now like think like, dang, I haven't done these 4 things. Like things are not going right for me right now. Like I need to take a breath, stop, go for a walk, do something to get out of that mental state. And just kind of recognize that happens. I think going back to Peter's earlier question, this is going to happen to us. We're going to go from like being in a great state of mind to being in this stressful, rigid, sort of non-creative state of mind as entrepreneurs. And finding that balance is the journey of an entrepreneur. And so that's why I love finding that balance. That's a daily struggle for me. It's probably a lot of you probably really like that balance too, and that's probably what you're doing, because the days that you're not dealing with that, okay, they're kicking your ass, but then there's the days that when you push through it and you're winning, and that makes everything else worth it, right? And so that's kind of like, you guys ever read The Dichotomy of Leadership by Jocko Willink, I think?
No.
He kind of talks about like this middle that we have to keep as leaders, and that process of like how to find that middle ground of something.
You said by what's the guy, the author's name you said?
I think it's Jocko Willink,
He's the
Willink.
he's like a former Marine or U.S. Navy SEAL or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great, man. I follow him on Instagram. Smart dude. Yeah.
He's a great guy.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna check it out for sure. So let's see, it's 8:45. Got about 15 minutes here to go. I know we want to go ahead and open up for Q&A, but I believe Peter had a couple more questions.
Yeah, I have a few more questions. One of them is going to be related to what we talked earlier, as the way that our body reacts, and I want kind of to connect to see, your opinion about this as chemical reactions in our body, which is endorphins. Every time we have something like an achievement that happens, yeah, our body, we are. You talk about drugs, you talk about people drinking and different other ways of coping with our issues. And I think one of the important issues is to understand why we do that. And I know that, one of the, I would say, target that our body has is that we need endorphins to feel good, to feel happy.
Mm-hmm.
And when we drink, when we eat too much, when we use drugs, wherever we use, our body assimilates those one with endorphins, and we get addicted to those endorphins. Um, one of the distractions we have on daily basis, I will say, is like our phone, a big distraction of our production. And the reason it's a distraction because our body assimilates this one with endorphins. We're looking for a text because, well, if it makes us feel good. We're looking for an answer or something because it makes us to feel good. It's releasing endorphins. Now, what I want to find out it is, from your perspective as a professional, what tricks we can do in our business to kind of control those addiction to endorphins. How to be focused more during our productive hours.
Yeah.
And how to cope with those.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really big on like morning rituals, man. And I think we talked a little bit about that last week, but like finding with endorphins, I think the biggest rewarding endorphin you can have is implementing exercises in the morning. You know what I mean? Like that right there kind of kicks you off to start to just make you feel happy again, make you start to feel like, okay, like I have some energy in me. But having a routine where you can like eat a healthy breakfast, get 8 hours of sleep, 6 to 8 hours of sleep, routine that includes exercise and just mind stimulation. If anyone here can take on meditation, like that's another big one, because I think the idea of being more productive with your business, you can be more productive when you can take little gaps of whether it's exercise, going for a walk, getting some breathing done. Like those things matter. And so I think with what you're talking about, like those things I would say to implement. Like I said before, like with me, like I'm my better days are when I'm able to implement those things. And then there's times where I feel like I don't have time for those things, but I'm not as effective when I'm doing my job. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
And how are you coping during those times to make sure that you kind of go back to your truck, not to lose it?
Yeah.
Like totally lose it.
I have an accountability partner, man. My wife has to call me out sometimes. So I have like ADHD, pretty bad ADHD sometimes. And so
Okay.
I'll forget like that, oh man, like I'm supposed to take out the trash on Wednesdays, or like oh man, I'm supposed to wake up and meditate. Like I'll just forget like one after weeks of doing it, just I'll randomly stop doing it. And so she'll notice, she'll be like, hey, like you're leaving your keys everywhere. You're, you're not remembering that we have this scheduled at this time. She's like, but are you going back to what you were doing before? I'm like, oh, damn, like that's right. So sometimes I can't remember, and so if I can have people to kind of call me out on that and give them permission to call me out and say, hey, you see me slipping, you got to let me know. And just be able to be open-minded to the idea that like, you're going to be called out and you better own it,
Accept the responsibility.
Yeah.
And I have a last question, and then I'm going to go to our great members that they came on the call. The last question that I want, it's a little bit more about what's going on in these days. And knowing the situation we are right now, this with COVID-19, what are your recommendations as an entrepreneur? How to cope with these mind blocks that the current situation with COVID-19 it creates it inside of our lives and our mind, our business, and how to cope with them. What are the steps? And if you can elaborate a little bit more about how people can actually take, I will say, whatever you're going to say to them and use it tomorrow and start to be a little bit more productive.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought about this, and I think if you can start to really identify what is in your circle of control, what is not in your circle of control, make a list, write it down. Can I control the coronavirus? Yes or no? Can I control the financial income the financial impact of the economy right now? Yes or no? Can I control that I'm not getting any customers coming in right now? Yes or no? Like write these things down, the things that are worrying you, and ask yourself, can I control this right now? And so if you can really practice identifying like what's in my circle of control and what's not, and focus on that part that is in your circle of control and take action based on that, I think that's the best thing you can go about this. I was asked to not come to work for 2 weeks when this whole thing started. They were sending me home, and I had to figure out like, how am I going to get paid? How am I going to pay my bills, right? But immediately I'm like, okay, got down to paper, did my finances. What do I need to do? What can I do right now to find some work to be able to pay the bills that I need to pay? I got called in on the day after they told me to go home, and they said, hey, would you work a night shift? I was like, hell yeah, I'll work a night shift, right? Like at this time I had to shift my mindset, because I think as a professional, as a therapist, I can get really caught up into like, hey, I want to work in the day shift. I want an office. I want all the coziness of being a therapist. But for me to be able to survive during COVID, I had to I can't be thinking that way. What does Grant say? Take yourself to zero, right? Like I got to be able to think like, no, I need to make money. So yeah, I'll work a night shift. I'll count some pills. I'll do some bed checks. Like I'll do the things that I haven't done in 8 years, right? And I'll do it with a smile on my face, because because that's what's in my control. Does that make sense? And I think that really helped me out, because after I did that for like 3 days, these guys were like, what are we doing? Like paying this guy what we pay him to be working the night shift. So they brought me back on a day shift. And I know that was a big part of that, because it's like, I think Grant says this of like, if they let you go right now, go work for free. And I totally believe that, because it's like, okay, because what you're doing is you're showing them your value. You're showing them that you're dedicated to them, and you're investing that time for them to hire you as soon as they can hire you. Does that make sense? So I think whatever situation presents itself, like there's always something you can control. And I want to recommend you guys a book. It's called A Man's Search for Meaning. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that book, but this guy, what's his name? I forget. Viktor Frankl. he spent some time in a concentration camp and completely lost all meaning of what he was doing, why he was living, because he was in a concentration camp being mistreated every single day, not sure where his family was, not sure where his wife was, and he had to find a way to fight through that. And what he realized in those moments in that concentration camp is that no matter what people do to him, no matter what happens to him, he has a will to change his attitude about the situation he's in. And so I think you have to practice doing that. You know, changing the attitude of what you're focusing on. You know, what's in your control. And I think that's as practical as I can get with that. Is ask yourself, okay, can I control this? No. What can I control?
100%, man. I like that a lot. You know, the things you can learn to accept the things that you can't control, and just direct all your focus to the things that you can control. You know, and really, you know, we're pretty well into the whole COVID thing, but you know, now is a good time, you know, for self-awareness, as analysis of your business. You know, look at your finances. Some exercises that even Grant was doing in the mentorship calls. Learn how to sell things if you have to. You know, things that, you know, it's like when your back's against the wall, especially when you have little ones, you know, you have a wife, house, mortgage, mouths to feed. I mean, you have to step outside of your comfort zone and do whatever necessary to be able to continue on, you know, whether it's a PPP loan, if you're a, you know, entrepreneur, or, you know, all the other loans and grants that they have out there, you know, right now. And it's tough. It's tough, you know, like I was actually trying to apply for the PPP loan, and you know, you call banks now and you're just on hold forever. I'm talking about like a 45-minute, you know, hour wait, you know, on the line. And you know, and just research, you know, go online. I learned that actually I should have just had done this last Friday. But if you go online, I heard that the CARES Act, or whoever's running that, they actually put on hold on all the new applications. So, you know, just doing your due diligence, seeing, you know, what you need financially for your business, for your income within the household, and just making those tough. Like you said, if you have to go work at I saw people here in Miami, you know, grocery stores, they were needing people. You know, don't put it, you know, below you to go and ask for help and work for somewhere like that. Or if
Yeah.
you, or right now, just building relationships. If you have other opportunities but they can't pay you, work for them for a few hours for free. Build that relationship, so if they give you a good opportunity, once we get to the other side out of this, then, you know, you'll have that there, you know, waiting for you. So,
Yeah.
but great stuff, man. Really, really good stuff. So it's 8:56. Yeah, let's open up for some questions. Peter, did you have any other questions before we open it
No,
up?
I was just trying to say, like, to everybody that if you have more information about the PPP, I post an interesting video this morning inside of the chat on the WhatsApp chat. By all means, go there and watch it. It does a little bit of the secrets. That's what's going behind doors. So if somebody still needs the PPP and still looking for to get it, by all means, go and check that video with Mark Kohler. He's a CPA and a lawyer. And he made a video special for that one with some inside tips and what's behind it, and how actually you don't have to return those money. What you have to do, what kind of entity you have to have. So very important things that you have to remember and you have to know about this. This is, it looks simple, but it's a little more complex. But he made it pretty clear. Anyhow, by this being said, please, if you have any questions, let's let the question to come and see how we can pull more information from Manny to learn more, so we can all benefit from it and
Yeah,
make
ask
this
away,
one.
guys.
Awesome, Peter. Thank you for posting it in the group. So, all right, guys, I'm gonna try to do my best here. If you want, just go ahead and raise your hand here, or just drop your question in the chat if you want me to unmute you as well. So, just going from top to bottom here, Sebastian had a question. I think he had a couple questions. So I'm just gonna go ahead and we were talking earlier before this started, so I'm just gonna go ahead and unmute you, Sebastian. Go ahead and ask him your question there. All right, there you go.
So, Manny, thank you very much. It was very, very inspiring your story and everything that you told us. And I was actually very interested on a particular subject, the memory process. So my question was, what type of trauma can affect you, and what type of exercise that you can do to shift the side effects like nightmares?
Yeah. That's a very good question. Actually, it really depends on you, on and how you you dictate how it affects you. So if you take two people and they both go through the same experience, it could be that one person goes through that experience and lives the rest of their lives normally without having to talk about it. But the other person, if you notice that you're starting to think about that a lot, that it's getting in the way of you being able to work, being able to have good relationships with people because you're thinking about it a lot, or because you're reacting in a specific way to it. So the being reacting would mean like having nightmares, would mean like depending on the type of trauma, like if you've been to like war or something like that, like having jumpiness, you know, not being able to get it out of your mind. So it just depends on how it's affecting you. And so this can be anything from asking the girl out in high school and getting said no to witnessing an accident where somebody was severely injured and died, even if it was like a family member. So I think trauma is very different for every person, and anything that you experience as painful could be considered a trauma. And then your second question was like, if you do experience some sort of trauma, like how do you respond to it, right? Or how are you able to what should you do about it? There's a couple things you can do, and it just depends on how the symptoms manifest.
Well, my second question was how to reduce procrastination, how to trick your mind.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
How to trick your mind to reduce procrastination.
Oh, to reduce procrastination. That's a good one, man. I think I need help with that sometimes. Well, I think one way to trick your mind is to be able to like gamify it, right? And so let's say, for instance, if you're procrastinating on a project, being able to make small targets, small goals. So if I want to write a book, right? Maybe I start with the table of contents, and maybe if I'm able to write the table of contents, then I'll reward myself by I don't know, buying myself something, or by going out with friends or whatnot. But being able to gamify it in a way, and having somebody who you can keep you accountable, having someone who could ask you like, hey, how's that going, by the way? And I think if you are able to implement those two things, procrastination should be a lot better. Also, one we kind of talked about earlier was like remembering the why. Like, what's the reason you even want to do what you're doing? Is there a bigger purpose, right? So maybe if it's going to the gym, right? Is it because you want to be healthy to live long enough to see your kids as they grow up? Is it because maybe you want to get a hot girl or something like that, right? Like, what's the reason? What's the bigger reason that calls to you? I think being able to really write that down and be clear on that.
Perfect. Very good. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you. Yeah, for sure.
Good stuff, man. And also with the procrastination, what kind of helps me out as well is keeping a schedule. And then I actually use a grant schedule, the 10X planner, and just lay out like all my goals, my intention, and just kind of break it down into different like pieces and be like, all right, so here's today's goal. This is what I need to do to accomplish this goal, and just kind of break it up in blocks, because it's kind of like laid out like between like different hours. And then, all right, like this block, I'm going to work on posting. This block of time, I'm going to work on outreach and, hitting people up. This block, I'm going to, just kind of like plan out like that. So just kind of like keep you on task. And then that kind of helps to alleviate some of the procrastination, kind of like to keep you on task and not have your mind wander so much, and, keep like putting it in the back burner, kind of stays in your face. If you actually write it down, you reference back to it. It's like in your face the whole entire day. So yeah, it's something that helps me as well. We also have a question by Mr. Ron Crudo. What's up, Ron? I'm going to go ahead and unmute you here. Oh, did I mute you? Ron, you there? Let's try this again.
Okay. All right, awesome. I think I'm in.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much.
Yep. Lost you.
There
you go.
am I in? All
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
there we go. I really appreciate it, especially for all the informative information. It was honestly very helpful. Just one thing I was thinking about, a lot of the conversation had to do with ourselves, but I think sometimes the challenge, and I think you brought it up with your own experience of having to deal with getting cut hours, is dealing with our employees and our teams. And so I was wondering if you had any insight or a few like very brief tips that you could offer about what we could do to help our teams with their mindsets, offering them additional support, especially during such a troubling time.
There you go. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, that's
we hear you now.
okay, Kurt. That's a great question, Ron. I think one thing I think about is like your team will follow your lead, and so sometimes just depending on how how long they've been working under you, or maybe they're where they're at in their motivation, their desire to want to change their mindset. It might take a while, but like I think they got to see you doing it first. You know what I'm saying? Like they got to see you getting excited about mindset. They got to see you talking about it. They got to see you doing little little meeting about mindset, 5-minute meeting before the big company meeting that you're having. But I think the more you talk about it, the more you talk about its benefits, and you show them that like, hey, like I want you guys to succeed here, you know, and there's opportunities for that, but there's a culture that I want to be able to build here, and that's around you being able to think in a way that's gonna improve you and improve this company. And if you can kind of align that for them, because I think sometimes I know the coworkers that I work with, like they don't understand sometimes how personal growth can how that they think that that's separate than the work that they're doing. But if you could have more conversations around like how that's tied together, and even like if there's a reward or an incentive for like people who work on their mindset, I think you're getting them more excited to be able to buy into that idea.
I hope Mr. Ron, did you receive the answer that you're looking for?
Yes, definitely. That was really helpful. I think it makes sense. At the end of the day, if we can change our own mindset, it should impact the team. And honestly, on my team calls, I try to ask fun, relaxing questions sometimes outside of just the general agenda to help set that mindset. But I don't always have a conversation about mindset. So I think it's really helpful to keep.
Yeah, and why it's important to you, you know?
Yeah, I like that. Kind of explaining why I even ask those questions. A lot of times I get laughed at by the team, not in like a bad way, just more of like, oh, here's another Ron question. But my purpose is to open up and make people feel more relaxed and comfortable, and to think that there's more to this than just business. There's also relationships to be built. So I think it's a really good point. Thank you.
No worries, man.
Thank you, Ron. So any other question, please? If you have any questions, now this is the moment. If not, we're gonna try to wrap up.
Ron's screen is really funny. I thought that was actually him the entire time.
Really? Whew, gotta love that Zoom layout. In the meantime, Manny, I wanted to ask you too. So basically, you're working now on a so they could know, on a consulting or coaching, like a side business we were talking about.
Yeah. So I actually kind of got blocked by my board, who told me I can't do coaching and therapy. So I'm deciding what to do. I think I'm gonna stick with therapy though. So I'm gonna be offering therapy services.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of, you guys kind of know my story. So because of that, like I have a big passion for helping men, younger men, men who are lost, who have low confidence, who can't seem to find what their identity and their purpose is in life. And, being able to give them the gift that I was able to receive, that like feeling of like, gosh, I can do this. And so that's going to be the biggest kind of target for me to be able to help those people out. Because I not only did I experience that like when I was in school, but like also as a father, like not knowing what the heck I was getting into, what I was going to do. And so just helping people just be better at being a father, at being a man, you know what I'm saying? One that's caring, one that's open-minded, one that wants to give back to people. So that's going to be my focus of my private practice.
Fantastic. And how do the folks at home reach you? Do you have is a better email, phone number?
Yeah, so you can actually message me, text message me. My number is 949-466-1560. I'll actually throw it in the chat here, and then I'll give you my Instagram too.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'll put it on here for you guys to be able to see. But if you guys have any questions, I don't do this very much, so I really want to thank you guys for putting me on here. And so if there is a question that you might have not gotten an answer on, or wanted more specifics, send me a text or follow up with me, because I might be able to give you actual the answer that you're looking for, a little more practical answer to the question you had. And I have ADHD, as I was telling you guys, so my mind can kind of go all over the place.
All right. I think probably half of us do here. At least I do, God knows. So that's awesome. And listen, we really appreciate you. Lots of nuggets in there today for us. Lots of great stuff to think about. And, you know, that's why I love doing these things, you know, on Sunday, man. You know, it's like we have some really great speakers come in here, and just like that energy that you guys bring, you know, like yourself, and just kind of like, it's like very motivating. It's like a little shot of positive injection to start off for next week, though. And you know, you crush it, bro. I really appreciate you, and you know, coming on here. So guys, take advantage of Mr. Manny. You got his information there. He's got his phone number as well as his Instagram. So
You can find
really
it also
it,
in the chat. You can find him also in the chat, in our WhatsApp chat. So every day you can reach out to him. Every time you can have some, I'll say, obstacles that you think somebody that has a little bit more experience as a mind, and how our minds and our inner works, maybe you can reach out to him, and if he's able, he can solve the issues. And like we said, you know, this is our purpose, to help this group to improve, to get better every day. And even if it's not Sunday, we're still there for the group. And if you need our help or our advices, by all means, reach out to us. And don't forget, we're going to put also in Facebook a pool, and that pool is going to be your skills. I want everybody in this group, I want their skills. I want the skills out to know how you can bring value to group, how you can, I will say, gain from you your skills, or what is the things that we can learn from you. So in that way, we know if we need something, instead to reach out of the group, we can reach inside of the group and get the help here. And that's going to be good for the business, for your business, and good for the group, because we're going to create this, I would say, family, that we're going to create a trust. And trust is very important in business. So let's try to keep working this group up, keep increasing, growing every day, and make it happen every day. And please release it, open up, let's work together. Okay, that's the only thing I have to say. Thank you very much, Mr. Manny.
Thank you guys.
Thank you very much for all the participants for tonight, and we're looking forward for next Sunday.